Federal law enforcement officials continue to investigate and shut down illegal Chinese marijuana grow operations across Maine. Senator Susan Collins is bringing the issue to the new Secretary of Homeland Security and FBI director. At Senate Appropriations Committee hearings today to review budget requests, Collins briefed both Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem and FBI Director Kash Patel. In August of 2023, DHS issued a memo in which the department identified more than 270 Chinese-backed illegal marijuana operations in Maine, producing up to an estimated $4.3 billion in illicit revenue. Collins says she hopes President Trump's detailed budget request includes funding to help law enforcement efforts to shut down the illegal grow houses in Maine and other states.
What we've done since I've taken the seat as the director of the FBI is reprioritize assets to push out into the field to cover down in not just pieces of Maine, but all of Maine. And when we finish this redeployment cycle, hopefully within the next 6 to 9 months, we will not only just have the manpower in the field, but at headquarters, I've prioritized intelligence collection against the CCP that is directly tied to these marijuana grow houses.
Patel says they have numerous investigations open on this matter.